Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Flower Power Live. Today is March 14th, and I am so itching to get outside and plant something. However, it's still pretty frozen around here. And so I was just thinking, well, when I can get out into the garden, what am I going to plant first? And that something is going to be peas. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about some little gardening, a little kind of botany, and also we'll take a look at the cousin of the garden pea, known as the sweet pea. And it's not something you necessarily want in your garden, but we're going to take a look at it anyway. My name's Allison from the Well Cultivated Life. Thanks for joining me here on my plant journey. This is show number 68. So here we go. I've been having so much fun. I'm just going to keep on going till it's not fun anymore. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, the pea family is Fabaceae, and that contains so many different plants from little teeny clovers all the way up to full-size trees. And one of their distinguishing characteristics is this um, flower, the classic pea flower here. This bottom one in the corner is the sweet pea, and then these are other different pea flowers. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is family characteristics. And when I was in college, I took a plant identification class, and they really focused on having us learn what are the similar characteristics between the plants in a particular family. Well, the people in a family also have similar characteristics, don't we? We have similar eyebrows and noses and voices and that sort of thing. And so within plant families, you also can see similar characteristics. And the advantage of being able to identify those types of characteristics for a family is that if you're out trying to identify a plant and we're coming into the growing season here, things are outside, you may be wanting to do some harvesting. If you can identify the family that something's in, like if you see a daisy, but it's not your typical oxeye daisy, you can still probably figure out what it is because you've already narrowed it down to a much smaller grouping from every plant imaginable down to just this one plant family. So today I'm just going to show you how you would identify something as being part of the pea family. And if it's something of interest to you, you can check out more about plant families and keying out plants and things like that. So these are the flowers. And as you can see, they have this kind of hood in the back, and then it's open up, kind of like this little passageway for the pollinators to go in and pollinate the flower. Almost looks like a little mouth on some of those. And even though they look like a snapdragon, snapdragons are not in the same family as peas. But some of the things that are includes alfalfa, which is a really important hay crop. All different kinds of beans that we eat, the green beans and shell beans, and even this funky mimosa flower here is actually in the pea family. And so you might look at that and say, well, that doesn't really look like those other pea flowers that I saw, which is why we really can't just use one thing when we're looking at plant family identification. So let's look now at the leaf. These are some other plants that I'm sure you're familiar with. The clover. This type of leaf here is called a compound leaf. And what it means is that instead of having one solid, you might think that this is 3 leaves, but it's actually one leaf with 3 different lobes that are attached together on the stem. And that's called a compound leaf. And then the lupin has what's called a palmate, because it looks like the palm of your hand, type of compound leaf. And so all of the members of the pea family all have some kind of compound leaf. This is a black locust tree, and you can see here how the leaves, called a pinnate leaf, and it has a long middle rib, and then all the little leaves come off, they're called leaflets, come off of the side. It also has these clusters of white flowers that are characteristic pea flowers. You've got the whole tree here. And then the third characteristic of the pea family is, of course, what we all think of, the pod. And so these are the black locust pods here. And here are some other pea pods. The honey locust has these long, twisting pods that are like, I don't know, they're like 10 inches long. I mean, they're big. We've got our classic beans. You can see the beans bulging out in the rattlesnake bean pod there. And then, of course, the peas in the center. And I love this picture on top because it really, you can see how the seed of the plant is developing inside of the pod. And there's one pod with one row of seeds in it. If you had like multiple pods, or sometimes when seeds have like little parts all fused together, then that would not be in the pea family. So this is a unique characteristic of the pea family. So by putting all three of those together, the flower, the leaf, the compound leaf, and the type of pod, then you can be pretty sure that what you've got is something in the pea family. Now, one of the things that I read about when doing the research, I downloaded this awesome, it was like a whole chapter about the Fabaceae family. And it, they never put their names on this stuff. So it was from UC Riverside and it was super helpful. But it said the seeds are often are laced with poisons as defense mechanisms against predators. Now, this is not an uncommon thing for plants to do, to put something either doesn't taste good, it's actually poisonous, it's sharp or rough, and to prevent other animals from eating their parts, right? And so it's not surprising that this would be into the seeds because, after all, if you don't make a seed, your species doesn't survive. And so it was interesting to read that because here we are eating these garden peas. Of course, we also eat garden beans. And while other animals probably figure out pretty quickly, gee, that's given me a stomach ache. It doesn't seem like humans have figured that out. We keep eating beans and we keep having gas and we keep eating them. So maybe the insects are a little bit smarter than us. Don't like that. So one of the other really cool things about the pea family is that they can fix nitrogen. And you may have heard this before, but like, what does that really mean? Well, first of all, nitrogen, if you've grown anything at all, you know that nitrogen is a really important plant nutrient. It's the main nutrients that it's needed for like leaves and stems and the green parts of the plant. And the other thing about nitrogen is that there isn't really a whole lot of it in the soil unless it's in some kind of organic matter or a compost. And so that stuff doesn't stick around very long. And the pea family, the legumes they're called, have figured out a way to pull the nitrogen that's in the air, like our atmosphere is 70% nitrogen, pull that out of the air and turn it into a form of nitrogen that they can use to as a nutrient. And so this means that not only can they use it for themselves, but it makes them really, really important plants for farmers to use because they can plant these plants. They'll restore the nitrogen in the soil, especially after you've grown something like corn, which uses a lot of nitrogen. So they'll rotate around in these different uh, cover crops to make sure and they restore a lot of the nitrogen to the soil. So they can be like clover, alfalfa, or the two main ones, and different other kinds of pea plants. So this means that peas don't need a lot of fertilizing, but you probably want to make sure you have a nice rich soil for them anyway, because if they're spending all their time making nitrogen, then they're not going to have as much energy left to create the flowers and thus the peas that we want to eat. Now, the Latin name for the edible type of pea is Pisum sativum, and there are so many cool varieties to choose from. This one here I have, here's just some pea seeds that were saved by a local farmer, gardener, this woman who has a flower farm. If you watched any of my shows in the fall, you probably saw a whole bunch of flowers in the background from her farm. And she also saved some peas and brought them for our seed bank. And So you've got shell peas, which are the pods that you let them grow out. You open them up and you actually have the big peas in there. And then there are snap peas, which are the type that you eat the actual pod before it grows out into peas. And those are not as recent. Those are kind of were developed maybe in the 1800s when we started to have a lot more seed companies coming in and creating varieties and packaging them up and so on. So the thing is with those snap peas, you definitely want to let some of them grow out. Or if you find one that you missed and it's already like big and bulky and you don't really want to eat it, let it grow out and save the seed from it. You can replant it the next year. Peas and beans, super easy to save seeds. And this is one of the reasons why they are a great um, type of plant to plant with kids, because not only are they quick and you can get and harvest, you can go out and eat something delicious and crunchy. They also are easy to save the seeds from. Just let them grow all summer long in your school garden, and you come back in the fall and harvest them then. Now, the other parts of the pea that are delicious are the pea tendrils. But again, if you go in harvesting all this part, you won't have a whole lot of peas. But some people who just can't wait, they got to have their pea tendrils um, early on in the season. Or if things are kind of growing out of control, you can snip those off. And the other one is that black locust. Let me put that back in here. Uh, the black locust, you can actually take down these clusters of blooms and make them into a fritter and deep fry them. I have not done that. I do not have a good black locust tree around here that I can harvest those from. But these pods, some people really hate them and they're kind of messy and you got to clean them up. So I say, hey, harvest the flowers, then you won't have to worry so much about cleaning up that mess because there won't be as much. Now, there aren't any actual herbal uses of peas, but I want to just point out that this is a really good example of let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. Okay. Peas are really loaded up with vitamins. They have a whole, they're high in protein because they're high in nitrogen. They've got high in fiber and 8 grams of protein in 1 cup of peas. That's a good, decent amount. They also have manganese, potassium, vitamin C, B vitamins, and all these other micronutrients. And so the better nourished we are, the less we're going to need medicinal herbs to help us feel better. So eating these fresh garden vegetables not only helps us be nourished, but it also connects us more to our ecosystem, which is basically was the theme of what I was talking about last week. Growing, harvesting, and again, great for kids. Now, the garden pea does not have a um, flower essence, but let's see here. The beautiful sweet pea is often used to make a flower essence. And the sweet pea is Lathyrus odoratus. So it doesn't even have the same genus as the edible pea. It's a climbing perennial, and it is actually considered poisonous to eat. Which is kind of good because you don't really end up with a lot of creatures coming in and trying to eat your sweet peas. I have one growing on my deck, and my husband hates it because it climbs all over everything. But I love it because it's beautiful. Now, the sweet pea flower essence is all about finding the place in the world where we feel that we belong, our true home. And so there's many different layers to what sweet pea can help you with. The first one is, do you feel at home, like in your home? Are you comfortable in your home? And um, this essence can be good for people who are living in a crowded situation. Maybe you're in an apartment building with noisy neighbors. Maybe you just have a lot of roommates or a big family and you're all kind of in each other's space all the time. And so it can help people just to feel more relaxed in their own home. It's also good for people who don't feel so at home in their community. So if they don't really feel connected out um, with their surroundings, they feel kind of uh, like an outsider. and they don't really feel like they belong in a particular community. And so this can really help you to make better connections there. It's This can happen a lot with people who might be have moved a lot, especially military families where you're constantly have to moving around every couple of years. And so it works great not only for adults, but it's great for children. This is a beautiful thing about flower essences. And it can even be used with pets, especially when you've just had sort of like a disruptive move and need to get resettled. Now, according to Green Hope Farm Essences, it also helps those of us who feel shy or reluctant to participate in human community and find a harmonious thread of connection to the other people. So it's really about not just, oh, do I feel at home in the city and walking down the street? It's to the people around you, the people in your community. And so there's also even the bigger scale. Do you even feel like you belong here on Earth? So some people feel like, oh my gosh, I'm from another planet, or, people will say things like that. So sometimes people just don't even really feel comfortable here in their bodies here on Earth. And it can really help you to feel like, oh yeah, I'm meant to be here in this life. And the last way that it can really help is it can help you to feel at home inside your heart, because we all know that if you belong to yourself in your heart, you are going to always belong somewhere. And so that is the flower essence. And I did find a card. The card itself is for, let's see if I can get that back up here, is for the garden pea, and it's from this lovely deck called the Green Witch Oracle. And the word on the card is communication. And a few of these ideas it had from the card was to share ideas, consider partnerships, gather information, step up enthusiasm. Now, so what this card is really saying is, now is the time. Now is the time to move ahead with your projects and plans. And that in order to do that, you really need to think about new ideas, new ways of communicating, and some things that you might have just kind of like dismissed or brushed aside in the past. Now is the time to really look at that and how it's working for you. So we've talked about families and we've talked about belonging, and now we're talking about communication. And so belonging is really pretty much one of the most basic human needs. It comes on the hierarchy there, just right after, food, water, and shelter. And so as a child, the most important place we want to belong is we want to belong in our family. We want to feel like we belong in our family. And if we do not have that, this actually can really do a lot of damage all the way through our whole life into our adulthood. And it's subconscious. We don't even realize that that is what is happening. And so if we start to think about like, well, what is one of the most important ways to feel that you belong, to feel like you're working with your family? And that is through your communication. So this week, just take a look. Like, do you feel kind of unsettled about something, either between your family, your community, some kind of miscommunication that might have happened that's leaving you feel uncomfortable? "Oh, I don't belong there. I feel rejected," things like that. And so there, take a look and see if there's something like that going on, because there's nothing like a miscommunication that can really make you feel pretty darn rotten, even though it wasn't intentional, right? So these words unsaid, one of the other things that the card tells us in this situation is to be wary of haphazard actions and failing to follow through. So if this is happening for you, don't delay, because life is too short to be feeling like you don't belong. Make sure your home is a place where you feel good with the people in it, and use your communication skills to make sure that's happening. So that's our message from P tonight. And thank you so much for joining me. I'm working on some new projects I'm going to be launching in April. So I hope to be announcing those soon. I will see you next Monday for another Flower Power Live. Bye, everybody.